"I don't think it would," replied Miss Murray, suddenly kindling up. "I'm sure you have plenty of time to yourself now, when you have so little teaching to do." It was no use beginning to dispute with such indulged, unreasoning creatures, so I held my peace. I was accustomed now to keeping silence when things distasteful to my ear were uttered, and now, too, I was used to wearing a placid, smiling countenance when my heart was bitter within me. Only those who have felt the like can imagine my feelings. As I sat with an assumption of smiling indifference, listening to the accounts of those meetings and interviews with Mr. Weston, which they seemed to find such pleasure in describing to me, and hearing things asserted of him, which, from the character of the man, I knew to be exaggerations and perversions of the truth, if not entirely false, things derogatory to him, and flattering to them, especially to Miss Murray, which I burned to contradict, or, at least, to show my doubts about, but dared not, lest, in expressing my disbelief, I should display my interest too. Other things I heard, which I felt or feared, were indeed too true, but I must still conceal my anxiety respecting him, my indignation against them, beneath a careless aspect. Others, again, mere hints of something said or done, which I longed to hear more of, but could not venture to inquire. So passed the weary time. I could not even comfort myself with saying, "She will soon be married, and then there may be hope." Soon after her marriage the holidays would come, and when I returned from home, most likely, Mr. Weston would be gone, for I was told that he and the rector could not agree, the rector's fault, of course, and he was about to remove to another place. No, besides my hope in God, my only consolation was in thinking that, though he know it not, I was more worthy of his love than Rosalie Murray, charming and encouraging as she was, for I could appreciate his excellence, which she could not. I would devote my life to the promotion of his happiness. She would destroy his happiness for the momentary gratification of her own vanity. "Oh, if he could but know the difference!" I would earnestly exclaim. But no, I would not have him see my heart. Yet, if he could but know her hollowness, her worthless, heartless frivolity, he would then be safe, and I should be almost happy, though I might never see him more. I fear, by this time, the reader is well nigh disgusted from the folly and weakness I have so freely laid before him. I never disclosed it then, and would not have done so had my own sister or my mother been with me in the house. I was a close and resolute dissembler, in this one case at least. My prayers, my tears, my wishes, fears, and lamentations were witnessed by myself and heaven alone. When we are harassed by sorrows or anxieties, or long oppressed by any powerful feelings which we must keep to ourselves, for which we cannot obtain and seek no sympathy from any living creature, and which yet we cannot, or will not wholly crush, we often naturally seek relief in poetry, and often find it, too, whether in the effusions of others, which seem to harmonize with our existing case, or in our own attempts to give utterance to those thoughts and feelings in strains less musical, perchance, but more appropriate, and therefore more penetrating and sympathetic, and, for the time, more soothing, or more powerful to rouse and to unburden the oppressed and swollen heart. Before this time, at Wellwood House, and here, when suffering from homesick melancholy, I had sought relief twice or thrice at this secret source of consolation, and now I flew to it again, with greater avidity than ever, because I seemed to need it more. I still preserve those relics of past sufferings and experience, like pillars of witness set up in travelling through the vale of life to mark particular occurrences. The footsteps are obliterated now, the face of the country may be changed, but the pillar is still there, to remind me how all things were when it was reared. Lest the reader should be curious to see any of these effusions, I will favour him with one short specimen. Cold and languid as the lines may seem, it was almost a passion of grief to which they owed their being. Oh, they have robbed me of the hope my spirit held so dear. They will not let me hear that voice my soul delights to hear. They will not let me see that face I so delight to see. And they have taken all thy smiles, and all thy love from me. Well, let them seize on all they can. One treasure still is mine, a heart that loves to think on thee, and feels the worth of thine. Yes, at least they could not deprive me of that. I could think of him day and night, and I could feel that he was worthy to be thought of. Nobody knew him as I did, nobody could appreciate him as I did, nobody could love him as I could, if I might. But there was the evil. What business had I to think so much of one that never thought of me? Was it not foolish? Was it not wrong? Yet, if I found such deep delight in thinking of him, and if I kept those thoughts to myself, and troubled no one else with them, where was the harm of it? I would ask myself. And such reasoning prevented me from making any sufficient effort to shake off my fetters. But if those thoughts brought delight, it was a painful, troubled pleasure, too near akin to anguish, and one that did me more injury than I was aware of. It was an indulgence that a person of more wisdom or more experience would doubtless have denied herself, and yet how dreary to turn my eyes from the contemplation of that bright object and force them to dwell on the dull, grey, desolate prospect around, the joyless, hopeless, solitary paths that lay before me. It was wrong to be so joyless, so desponding. I should have made God my friend, and to do his will the pleasure and the business of my life. But faith was weak, and passion was too strong. In this time of trouble I had two other causes of affliction. The first may seem a trifle, but it cost me many a tear. Snap, my little dumb, rough-visaged, but bright-eyed, warm-hearted companion, the only thing I had to love me, was taken away, and delivered over to the tender mercies of the village rat-catcher, a man notorious of his brutal treatment of his canine slaves. The other was serious enough. My letters from home gave intimation that my father's health was worse. No boding fears were expressed, but I was grown timid and despondent, and could not help fearing that some dreadful calamity awaited us there. I seemed to see the black clouds gathering round my native hills, and to hear the angry muttering of a storm that was about to burst and desolate our hearth. End of chapter 17.